Welcome back to OpenLine. We are talking about mindfulness and gratitude, specifically as we head back in to a new school year, which is always a change of season for so many folks, me included. Right here in Middle Tennessee, a lot of kids went back to school just today. We have Danielle Matthew joining us. She is a licensed marriage and family therapist, written a book, also co-founder of CPE Collective. Danielle, thank you so much for being with us tonight.
Thank you so much for having me.
It's good to see you once again. And we want to talk about tools for parents. Today in itself can be very overwhelming as you send those kids out the door for the first time this school year, not to mention what we've been through the last few years and even just the last few months with the school violence. It is a lot. We all know parenting is hard, and you work with parents a lot. What are the main things that you want parents to hear tonight?
I want to talk a little bit more about the 3 E's of empathy, empowerment, and engagement, because I think a lot of parents at times struggle with how to talk to their kids about the fears of the world and what's going on, and wanting open, candid conversations. And I think they want their kids to just be real with them. And so I talk a lot about this in relation to how do you be empathic? And a lot of times, parents don't know how to do that, but that's not their fault. They just didn't know. And so they'll tell people how other people feel instead of saying, I'm wondering if you're feeling this way. Well, they'll say, well, Johnny feels this. And we really teach a different way to ask. How do you feel? What are you feeling? Are you feeling sad? If they don't have words, like younger kids, maybe you can say, are you feeling disappointed? And really helping them with that. And also I love for little kids, for parents to use, or even educators, that feelings chart where you have all the pictures of the emotions. I think that is wonderful because it really helps start that trajectory of talking about emotions. And so I think it can help parents also to tune into their kids. So the first step, I think, is being empathic to them. Then I think it's empowering them. I think there's nothing better in the world than empowering your children and making them feel good about themselves and that they have their own voice and they can use it. And it works. I can't tell you how many times I work with my clients and parents and talk about how do you use your voice with your mom and dad? How do you talk to them? I was just talking to a parent today who was so happy her daughter is coming to her more now and talking to her and using her voice and saying what she needs. And so it's really good to talk about what's empowerment them. How do you want to handle the problem? If there's a problem going on between us, or you're having a problem with someone at school, or you're being bullied, how do you want to handle it? Do you want us to practice role plays together? Do you want me to play one part and you another? Do we want to talk through situations if it's stuff going on with social media? Being there really to help them and to guide them. And the final step is really engaging with your kids. So it's empathy, empowerment, and engagement. And that engagement is huge because in the engagement, it's the follow through plan. Is this working? Are we connecting? How can we help? And really leaving your kids a space to come to you, because a lot of times kids will say, no, I don't need to talk about this right now, Mom. I don't want to. And that's okay. But letting them still know that you're there and you're open and you're willing to have that dialogue with them, I can't tell you how huge that is, because that gives them the abilities to come back to you when they're ready and on their terms. And those conversations can be just so impactful. And in my book, The Empowered Child, I really talk about empathy, empowerment, and engagement. And I do in regards to bullying and how parents can talk to kids about bullying. But the 3 E's is really a good way to connect and to help people in the moment. And for parents, I think, to really talk to their kids, especially if there's been some conflict, really being open is important.
One thing that I find that is difficult as a parent is, when you think about these 3 different E's, you also have to think about each child and their communication style and their love language. And just, it's like, gosh, why can't you guys just all play by the same book? But it never works that way, right?
Does not work that way. And as you know your child, you know how to approach them. So when you're empathic, you need to know what that looks like. You have a great point with your child, right? How are you going to be empathic? How are you going to empower them? Some kids will say, especially if you have a teenager, they're going to say, I don't need your help, Mom and Dad. So you can just say to them, okay, but I'm here to help you and guide you if you need it. And it sounds like you're really struggling, so I'd like to try to help you if I can. But you leave them the room and the space to come back to you, and you provide a roadmap but it's not overpowering them and telling them how to handle things or doing it for them. I'm a really big component of that, where you don't do things for your children in terms of doing it for them. Helping teach them and guiding them is so powerful because kids really want to do things themselves.
Okay, let's talk about bullying, because I find that interesting when you're saying don't do it for them. So don't go straight to the school and try to solve the problem. Is that what you're saying?
So here's what happens a lot. So parents will go in, rightfully so, really upset because their child is being bullied. They'll go talk to the principal, and sometimes they'll bring the bullied kid in and the kid who's doing the bullying and their parents. And that is a really not good thing to do, because it reinforces the bully, and the victim will be re-victimized again quite quickly. They'll just be more careful about it so the bully doesn't get caught. And when parents hear this, they're like, Danielle, what are you talking about? What am I supposed to do? And I really help them with the 3 E's. I help them really teach their kids how to handle the problems. Now, if there's physical violence or something on that level, then that's a different story. But I'm talking about peer interactions. The other thing that I see a lot of is that whole idea of being a positive bystander or helping out when other kids are getting bullied. And, you know, some people say they should stand up for their friends. Yes, if we can stand up for our friends, we can. But guess what? If you're friends with both those people, how easy is that really going to be? So what I teach people, whether it's children, even adults, is to use their voice. You know, if you can't do anything in the moment, you can check in on the friend who is being hurt. Make sure they're okay. You know, you can still use your voice to be supportive and caring. And I think with kids, that's a lot easier for them to do than have to get in the middle of a situation between maybe 2 of their peers, let's just say.
It is kind of a big ask for a child to intervene or to solve the problem or to speak up and do the right thing. I mean, especially even if we're talking about little kids or even high schoolers, that's a tough situation to be in.
It's very tough. And, you know, I don't think having that expectation, I mean, we always want to teach people to be thoughtful of others and caring, but there's different ways to be thoughtful and caring. And if kids they want to save face with their other friend and they don't want to get in the middle, there's no way that they're going to get in the middle of that. But what they can still do is check in on that other person, make sure that they're okay. Because what we're seeing a lot of right now, and I think during the pandemic, was the idea of cyberbullying, which is always everything on social media sites. And what I tell kids a lot, at all levels of kids, is I tell them they're on stage at all times when you're with social media, right? Everyone's watching you. So think about being on a stage and what that feels like, and make sure you have smart ways of using your social media, and careful, because you never know what can happen. And I really teach that.
I would like to get your perspective on social media. I know so many of my friends are talking about, when do we introduce, you know, them having a cell phone and how much access, and but I'm interested to know from a therapist standpoint and thinking about what children are ready for just when it comes to their brain maturity. Because social media just opens an entirely new and big and vast world.
It does. And so, you know, the way I look at social media is you have to do it with a lot of careful thought. You come up with a contract, I think, with your child about when they can use social media, how they're going to use social media, what it's going to look like. And I'm a big fan of parental controls. So there needs to be some sort of controlling of what they see, and that you are going to be allowed as the parent to check their social media. But you also need to train them how to use it. And I think that's the danger sometimes, is that we don't teach kids. We just go ahead and give them a phone because Johnny had a phone or Sandy had a phone, so I'm now going to I want a phone. But we have to teach them, even at the younger age when they start getting phones, how do you use a phone? How do you use social media? How do you go on to Snapchat? How do you go on to Instagram? What's the way to do it that's okay? And having rules and a contract around that, and reminding them always, you are on stage, even when you don't think you are. If you put anything out there, it's going to be on stage for other people to see. So you have to do it really responsibly, I think, as a parent. And also it's more of a dialogue. It's not saying you're just going to do this and this. You're going to explain to them and have it more as a conversation and an understanding, so everyone's on the same page.
I want to ask you more about the empathy component of this. I'm just thinking of my 9-year-old, who is a very practical, analytical, black and white kind of kid. Empathy is not his strong point. Can you teach empathy? Should it look the same for everybody?
I think it's just giving him a sense of awareness of how he's feeling and what's going on with him. So whatever words work for somebody who's more rigid, it's okay, I'm wondering if you're feeling this, really giving them, especially if they're black or white, letting them tell you how they feel, right? Not telling them what they think, because they have their own real clear sense of what they want and what they don't want. And so giving them that latitude, I am telling you, it works so well when you ask kids how they feel, and sometimes not labeling it for them. That gives them the courage and the self-esteem to be able to say, okay, now I can be in my own power and I can say how I feel. And so I think giving them that room to tell you how they're feeling.
That's great. And that's part of empowerment, right?
Yes, that's empowering them, because I'm a big believer, and so are we in CPE Collective and with my own business, the empowerment space. I'm a big believer of empowering kids. I believe kids want to learn how to cope. I think they want to learn how to handle their own problems, and I think they want to feel good. And I think when we do things for them, a great example is, let's talk about a baseball field for a minute, right? And a baseball team. Once I had a client come in, and the kid's being teased on the baseball team. And the father said, I'm going to go talk to the coach. They're not going to treat my son that way. He's walking off the field and he's feeling sad and he's crying. And I said, well, then what's going to happen? He's like, well, what do you mean they're going to stop? And I say, well, it's going to make it worse for them, because you are the parent going and telling them what to do, and your child is going to be teased even worse. We have to teach them, him or her, how to actually relate, how to connect, and how to stand up for themselves, because that's more empowering than a parent taking care of a situation. Because that way, I think peers will be more responsive in a positive way.
And it takes out of the equation what was really, we talked about a lot maybe 5 years ago, was the helicopter parent who would like follow their kid to college and talk to the professors, and it's like, whoa, you got to take a step back. So if you're always solving their problems, if you start in elementary school and continue on, there you are in college calling the professor.
That's right. And believe me, I have friends who are professors and they have had that happen. So that is absolutely a true story. And we don't want that, because that's what I love about social and emotional learning skills. Going back to those 5 competencies for a minute, it teaches you life skills. It teaches you how to be in the world, how to be a leader, how to be responsible, how to make decisions, how to connect to people, have relationships, have social awareness, have self-awareness. It has all those components, which is why I think we need that more than ever now, given where the world is at this time.
Let's talk a little bit about that. I have done stories, my colleagues have done stories. The teen suicide rate is so high. I think it's the second leading cause of death among adolescents in Tennessee, which is just heartbreaking. Anxiety is up, depression is up among our teens. What is happening? Why are we at this point?
Well, we started per the CDC, and 1 in 5 had mental health issues. Kids, and then after the pandemic, it's been 1 in 3.
Wow.
So yes, there's been a significant change in the dynamic. I think fear is a big thing now with seeing the pandemic and what happened, school shootings, I think violence, I think all those things, climate change, the world wars.
Yep.
I think we've seen things differently, and the fear just got really high, even more so, I think, after the pandemic. Not to say that it wasn't already with violence in school shootings. I just think it took on a new level of intensity. And so there is so much anxiety and depression right now. And we do have skills we can use. And one of the things I love that we also talk about in our collective is we talk about chronicling, which is that whole idea of taking an experience you had in the past, and we talk to kids about it and say, so how did you handle that problem before? When you were doing X, Y, and Z, what did you do? How did you handle that situation? And then we take them to now. Okay, so you did that then. What of those skills that you were able to do in that difficult situation can you do now? What does that look like? And it really can help them build a sense of strength and coping and what that looks like, even now when the numbers are higher. I mean, we've talked about that we really do have a youth mental health crisis on our hands right now.
And how should parents know that it's something more than just teenage hormones, or a teenager acting like a teenager and shutting themselves in the room, or that sort of thing? How do you know that there is more going on underneath the surface?
I think if there's a change in their patterns of behavior, if they start to, their grades go down, they isolate more, you know, they're not seeing the same friends anymore, you're noticing a mood change, it's always okay to check in with them and just make sure they're okay. And that's why I love the family meeting. Again, if I go back to that as an example, because it's a weekly check-in, right? Where everyone gets that talking stick and can talk about what's going on and what they want different for the next week or what bothered them. It's a forum to give them for communication. And it's okay to ask for help. It's okay to talk to someone, to want to talk to a therapist, a school counselor, a teacher. You know, it's okay to be open because the kids are carrying so much pain at times inside of them, and we just want them to have a way to cope and learn that they're going to be okay and things can get better.
I'm sure you've had parents in your office who say, I just can't get them to talk. They just groan and grunt and go to their room. How do you break past that barrier?
I think you give them space to come back to you. When I had said earlier, we talk about, I'm here for you. I know you're telling me right now that you don't want to talk, and this isn't what I'm wanting right now, but I am here and I care about you and I love you, and what happens to you really matters. Letting them know those words, you matter, you matter. The best thing is, you know, I don't know, but what I've seen before is that Fred Rogers had this whole statement about the idea, you know, Mr. Rogers,
oh, yes,
about kids, right? And so in the movie, there was I guess a reporter interviewing him that was just out a few years ago. I think Tom Hanks was in it. And it talked about, how do you assess if your child, how do you tell them how you feel about them? Well, we tell them they did great on the test. We tell them they did a wonderful job on their history test. We told them they did great on the baseball game they played in. But what about what you like of them, that they're good people, that you like that they're sweet, you like that they're kind, you like that they're caring, you like that they think about things in the world going on. You know, that is so impactful to kids, to be thought of for who they are versus what they do.
Right.
I think that's a real difference. And it's so great when he said this in this movie about just, you're a good person. You're a great kid. You are so sweet. We need more of that, because that goes with the social and emotional skills, right? Of life skills, of how to be a good person, how to take care of yourself in the world, how to advocate for yourself. All those components come in together, I think, at that point.
Well, I'm just thinking how much it just makes you swell and build up with, you know, with pride and just, you know, those good, warm, fuzzy feelings when someone truly tells you something about yourself that they appreciate. You know, that's just, it's more than like, you had a great newscast or you're quite the news anchor. You know, it's, you're a great listener or you're a great friend. It's like, oh, well, thank you. You know, that's truly meaningful. It touches your heart.
And so to go back to your question, I think when you acknowledge that to your kids who might be feeling sad, you know, you give them a space to come back to you and just say you're there and consistently remind them that you're there, you know, and that if they need anything, you can be there to help them and to support them and guide them, and that you care very much about them. And it's giving them that space and checking in on them regularly and a constant reminder, I think.
Good advice. Okay, we have to take another quick commercial break. I do want to remind you, if you have a question that's brewing in your mind, get on the phone and let's get it answered. 615-737+. We're coming right back.